Welcome to the Paul Chandler Show, everyone. I'm your host, Paul Chandler. In tonight's episode, we're going to be dissecting an op report, but for the digestive system. Because especially the digestive system is one organ system in the body where we tend to forget what all the functions of the organs are. Okay, we're talking about our mouth, and going down the esophagus and the stomach, and then all the organs that we have between our stomach and then the colon and then the rectum, we kind of forget what they do. We know that they're there, but we sometimes forget what procedures we can do on them. So tonight's episode of the show, we're going to be looking at a op report on the digestive system, and we're going to do a full dissection, meaning we're going to code it from real world, fill in the blank. So stay tuned and we'll be right back where we op report dissect for the digestive system. With the pre- and post-op diagnosis, history of rectal carcinoma. Now, like in previous examples, I prefer to do the diagnosis code first and then do the CPT. So here we're actually going to end up having two different diagnosis codes. Yes, we are going to code the history of rectal carcinoma, meaning carcinoma also meaning malignant neoplasm. But in this case, though, and in real world, you would know to do this as an additional diagnosis code because of the fact that if you code GI procedures, you'll just be familiar with it. So looking at the procedure performed, closure of loop ileostomy with small bowel resection with enterostomy with intraoperative flexible sigmoidoscopy. So we have to remember that the primary diagnosis code for the procedure is what made the patient come in the door that day and to actually have the procedure done. So the patient did not have the procedure because of the fact that the patient had a history of rectal carcinoma. The patient had this procedure because they have to close the loop ileostomy that was done previously, the loop ileostomy. So in the real world, when we're looking up the first diagnosis code, why the patient came in the door that day, it's because of the ileostomy. Now they had the ileostomy before because they had the rectal carcinoma. So when you're looking up in the diagnosis book, in ICD-10, in this case, the reason why they came in the door of the day was due to a previous procedure. How we look that up is actually in alphabetical index in front, the first phrase, attention. So that's actually the first word we look up, attention, because we're paying attention to the ileostomy. So in ICD-10, in the ICD-10 index in front, we look up the word attention as our first word. And in the AAPC ICD-10 CM 2018 book, that would take you to the bottom right part of page 69. Where attention begins, about 2 inches from the bottom, the right column. Then I drop down to ileostomy, and there I get Z43.2, because there we have the history of rectal carcinoma, and there we have the procedure performed, closure of loop ileostomy. So my first code is going to be the Z43.2, and I'm going to go in the back and just double check that, make sure that is right. And there's not another specific code that could apply. So Z43.2.2. Yep, Z43.2, encounter for attention to ileostomy. So that's about as specific as we can get. So that's the first code. Now I would still, and I'll do this in like a green highlight here to show the difference. So Z43.2 is my first code, and I got the wavy lines. Can I get rid of that? There we go. That's the first code, but I still have the code though, the history of rectal carcinoma, since that's actually in the post-op diagnosis. So I'm going to code that next, and then alphabetical index in front. Between the words history of rectal carcinoma The word history is the most generic because it's history of what? We don't know if we just use the word history. So looking up that word history in front, that would take me to page 198. And my drop downs for history, I have to know, is it family or personal as the main differences. Personal in this case, it's for the patient. So personal begins on page 199 for the drop down, left column, about halfway down. And then this is a history, so I got that word out. I can take out history of. And I know it's personal. And then rectal carcinoma, the next generic term is carcinoma. So if I look up cancer, history, personal, then cancer, that takes me to the middle column of page 199 up on top, about an inch down. It says C, history, personal of malignant neoplasm. So I would get rerouted. The malignant neoplasm drop down is on the right column, page 199, about 2/3 of the way down. So I'm looking up history, comma, personal, comma, malignant neoplasm. And so that gets me carcinoma. And then I need to look for rectal. And then I have under rectal or rectum, kind of same thing, I have rectum NEC Z85.048 or carcinoid Z85.040. And as you can see, after rectal, I am out of words. I can cross out. So I do not see the term carcinoid in my documentation. So it'll leave me the Z85.048 as my second code. And I'm just going to go back to the back and double check that. Z85.048. Dun, 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 dun. Z85.048. Personal history of other malignant neoplasm of rectum, rectosigmoid junction, and anus. So that applies. So that works for me. So there gives me my two diagnosis codes. Again, the Z43.2. That's because the main reason why the patient came in the door that day is because of the ileostomy procedure was performed before, and that's what we're working on today. That's why we have the Z43.2 for the attention of ileostomy. And then because we have the post-op diagnosis history of rectal carcinoma, that gives us a second code, Z85.048. Okay, now looking at the procedures, we have procedure performed, closure of loop, ileostomy with small bowel resection, and enterostomy with intraoperative flexible sigmoidoscopy. So the closure of loop ileostomy, I am not going to code the loop ileostomy as doing this procedure because that was done in the past, and this is what we are doing today, is we're closing it. But we're also doing the enterostomy. So that's what we're doing today, the enterostomy. So I'm going to look up that in the back of the CPT book. Look up enterostomy, N-T-E-R-O. Okay, now for the CPT. So looking up again, enterostomy. In the back, we have the bottom left part of page 879. And we have enterostomy, but then 4 lines down, we have enterostomy. And it says drop downs, closure, placement, with, and so forth. I would like you to draw a line in your CPT book and connect enterostomy with enterostomy. Again, 4 down. So we're connecting enterostomy with enterostomy. And this doesn't make a lot of sense on the coding side because we're not clinical. However, though, on the coding side, though, these should actually be together because we're doing the closure of the enterostomy. However, sometimes, though, enterostomies are called enterostomies, which you can see by the back index will completely change where we're guided to. So linking enterostomy with enterostomy, think of that as saying enterostomy, see also enterostomy. So we can look down there again. So now looking at enterostomy, then we have closure placement with enterectomy, with enterostomy, or with protectomy. And what are we doing? We're doing the closure. So then I'm going to enterostomy, then drop down to closure. And then that gives me codes 44227, 44620, 44625, and 44626. So looking up these codes in order, we have 44227. And whenever there's multiple codes like this, I just tend to go left and right, go in order, so that way I don't miss one by accident. Because the one that you miss could be the one that you need. So we have 44227, laparoscopy surgical with closure of enterostomy, large or small intestine with resection and anematosis. Now, this code would not be it because we do see the laparoscopy code. However, though, with this code, see, and the reason why I don't like this code is because there's other terms that we're missing in the documentation. Because, for example, we don't have, looking at the small bowel resection, we did the resection also. So yes, we have the laparoscopy and we have the term sigmoidoscopy here. But as you can, if you were to look through the description of procedure section, the flexible sigmoidoscopy was performed revealing a thick pink mucosa. That there just showed that was just for diagnostic purposes. So that was not a surgical procedure. So the laparoscopy was not surgical, it was just for diagnostic. But then also the small bowel resection, that's what we're doing also. The ileostomy, that was done in the past. But we're also doing today the small bowel resection. So they're not like 44227. That would lead me to 44260, 44265, and 44626 on page 310. So we have 44620, closure of enterostomy, large or small intestine. And I like that because we have the enterostomy, also known as enterostomy. Then we got closure. So that one looks good so far. But then we have 44625 with resection and anematosis other than colorectal. So there, I like the term resection. So that helps me out there. So because we have small bowel resection, and it says with anematosis other than colorectal. So remember, anematosis is when we reconnect two tubes, if you will, so 2 parts. So we have 44620, I can say is out right now, because 44625 and 44626 both are with resections. However, 44625 is with anematosis other than colorectal, and 44626 is with colorectal anematosis. So that means we are connecting something other than the colon in 44625, or we're reconnecting 2 parts of the colon in 44626. So I'm going to go ahead and cross out the small bowel resection there, eliminate that out. So now I'm looking through and seeing where we did the anematosis or where we did the reconnection. So I'm just scanning the documentation here. Okay. And after scanning through the documentation, we see that the colon was reattached to the rectum. And where I get this from, because we have the digital rectal examination. So I will make this color, I'll make it the bright blue there, the turquoise. So we have the digital rectal examination there, and then the flexible sigmoidoscopy was performed revealing healthy pink mucosa. That's back to the sigmoidoscopy that we did for the diagnostic purposes. So because we have a rectum and the colon being reconnected, that would make it 44625, not 44626. Because again, 44626 with resection and colorectal anematosis would be if we were reconnecting two different parts of the colon together. Or two different colons, like say a sigmoid and descending, or descending and transverse, or transverse and ascending colon. But because we are reconnecting the rectum and the rectum there and the sigmoidoscopy, the sigmoid colon, that would mean it would be 44625. Even though we are doing the sigmoid colon, it's not two parts of the sigmoid colon. It's sigmoid colon. I'm sorry, it's not two parts of a colon. It's a sigmoid colon and the rectum. So that's why it would be the key phrase with resection of anematosis other than colorectal. So this one was a bit of a doozy one, but I'm glad though that this was the one that we did the example on. So in this case, giving us CPT code 44625 and diagnosis codes Z43.2 for the attention to the ileostomy. That there gave us the first diagnosis code, and then the Z85.048 for the history of rectal carcinoma. And in this case, you can also see an example of, because I copy this into Microsoft Word when I do these examples so I can show and highlight. But here we have the lovely red wavy line underneath, and I'll do this in bold red there. Unhealthy is spelled wrong. So again, so there you can see, I was like the gray color. There's an example of not correct spelling and documentation. Something like this, we would not have to go back and have the provider check, redo the spelling on it and, and change it, make an addendum. But whenever we're talking about an organ or the name of a procedure or something that could have an impact, and essentially on the procedure code or the diagnosis coding, where if the word is in the procedure code or the diagnosis code, then we would need the provider to go back and do an addendum and check the spelling on it, and make an addendum and correct the spelling for what it should be for the proper coding. But in this case, the word healthily was supposed to be healthy. That does not affect the procedure coding or the diagnosis coding, so the doctor is not needed an addendum in this case. Thank you for taking time out to watch us dissect that op report, and that way we can figure out how coders need to code for gastroenterology, the digestive system in the real world. If you have any suggestions for future topics of the show, just visit thepaulchandlershow.com, scroll up to the top, and click on where you can submit a topic suggestion, and we'd love to hear from you. So again, thank you for watching, and have an awesome rest of your day.